So Iran has responded, and just a few hours ago, missiles were raining down inside of Israel. Now, we also have some updated information as to the effectiveness of Israel's strikes in Iran last night, specifically the impact that had to the Iranian nuclear facilities, their missile launch sites, and military airfields. But I want to get started with some footage out of Tel Aviv. And this is a pretty wild clip, again, just a few hours ago, showing Israeli interceptors trying to down incoming Iranian missiles. And all of a sudden, you see the impact from one of those missiles strike home. Now, it's not clear exactly what was being targeted here. It could have been going after that air defense asset, which is a normal thing to do for missile strikes, or that air defense asset could have been protecting a sensitive location that Iran was targeting. We don't know what the target was in this case. We don't know the effects of that impact. But what we do know is that the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, has announced that Operation True Promise 3 has been launched. Turning to some statements from the IDF, kind of summarizing things here. Their spokesperson, Brigadier General Defrin, said, quote, 2 barrages of surface-to-surface missiles were launched from Iran towards Israeli territory. Fewer than 100 total missiles were fired. Most were intercepted by air defense systems or failed to reach their targets. There were a few impacts on buildings, some caused by interception debris. This is yet another indication of the necessity of the operation, whose goal is to remove the threat. We will not allow Iran to grow stronger and produce quantities of missiles that could pose an existential threat to the state of Israel. Further interceptions may occur, and we are taking action to eliminate the threat. Now, through unofficial channels, at this point, I'm seeing the reporting that 21 people were injured across 9 different locations inside of Israel. And a key note here is it does appear that there was enough early warning for Israeli citizens to make their way into shelters and to not be out on the streets as these missiles and or interceptors came back down. Now, of course, in any one of these cases, people will argue, was that an actual missile impact point or an interceptor that fell down to earth? Because that does happen. It's pretty clear based off some of the damage we're seeing in these pictures out of Israel that some of those munitions did get through. And I don't think Israel's even saying that 100% were intercepted. The highest number I saw was 97%, but that includes about 100 missiles and then 100 drones fired earlier today. So 200, that means 6 to 10 maybe on or about got through. Now, which does kind of link up with what we're seeing in the different videos. And I should also mention that it does appear that Israel's allies did participate in some of the interceptions here. We have the first report that I've seen of confirmation that the United States, now it's coming from an unnamed official, right? But it's being reported that U.S. forces did assist in the interception of some of these drones leading up to, or that were fired from Iran towards Israel. Now, turning to the Iranian side of things here, the IRGC put out a statement just as this kicked off saying, quote, the missile and drone units of the IRGC Air Force targeted military centers and air bases that were the source of the criminal aggression against our country, as well as military industrial centers used by the Zionist regime's army to produce missiles and other military equipment and weapons to commit crimes against the resistance peoples of the region, especially the oppressed Palestinian people and Gaza. Field reports, satellite imagery, and intercepted intelligence indicates that dozens of ballistic missiles effectively struck strategic targets. Despite the claims of interception, the enemy failed to counter the waves of missile attacks launched by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, we have a lot of footage at this point. Clearly, some got through. Dozens feels high. My gut right now says somewhere between 6 to 8, maybe 9 that actually made their way through to effectively strike something. Now, whether they actually hit the desired target is a different story, and then if they had the desired effects on that target is another story as well. Now, speaking of claims that turned out to not be true, I'm seeing a lot circulating on Iranian media earlier today saying a couple of different directions, and this is one where I think it was so artificial to begin with that it maybe spawned in a couple different directions, but there have been claims suggesting that Iran successfully shot down 2 Israeli F-35s, and they've got a nice fancy infographic showing how that clearly happened. Definitely not. I can confirm this is not AI. That is a genuine picture of Iranian air defense. This second one, though, is an old picture from what I can tell. So there's stories circulating, rumors circulating that Iran downed at least one, maybe a couple Israeli F-16s over Iranian airspace. And the pilots, according to Iranian sources, the pilots ejected and the search is ongoing to capture those pilots. Again, the reason I say this is so fabricated that the stories start to branch in every direction. Some say it was F-35s, others say it was F-16s, others still say they were captured. Some say I've seen the pictures of the captured pilots, which is crazy because I, for the life of me, can't find those pictures. One of the reasons I think we're not seeing those pictures is this image that is being shared as evidence across Iranian media right now of this shoot down of Israeli jets is actually from 2015. So that's actually a Russian plane shot down by Turkey, and it looks like they just tried to make it a little bit darker to trick people. I don't know. It's not even like good. Just use AI, right? Just make it an original fake, not an old fake. But nonetheless, there's no indications at this point that any Israeli aircraft have been shot down, that any Israeli pilots have been captured or down behind any enemy lines, anything like that. If you're looking for Israel to confirm this, it's going to be hard because you can't prove a negative. We are reliant upon Iran at this point to show evidence, not only that they downed Israeli aircraft, but that they have a pilot in custody like they claim. Again, we're getting a lot of footage out of Iran at this point showing air defense assets in action. A lot of their citizens filming things and uploading it to the internet. We haven't seen anything yet suggesting an aircraft was hit. Haven't seen any wreckage, anything like that at all. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Just doesn't look like it's happened so far. Now, in terms of these attacks, we did start to get some statements from Israel saying they're going to respond pretty aggressively here. Defense Minister Katz said, quote, Iran crossed red lines when it dared to fire missiles at civilian population centers in Israel. We will continue to protect the citizens of Israel and ensure that the Ayatollah regime pays a very heavy price for its criminal actions. Now, look, we're seeing there's plenty of statements that have been made already in both directions where it's a little bit of like, guys, come on. We saw Israel last night go after, it doesn't matter how targeted it was, we definitely saw Israel strike what would be considered civilian facilities. They were the homes and the residences and or the offices of sometimes military personnel, other times nuclear scientists. And I understand how you can group nuclear scientists into a threat in this capacity because they're developing nuclear weapons, but a lot of those facilities, from what we can tell, were in populated centers. They were in Tehran and elsewhere. That same argument is going to be made in this direction, assuming that Iran was actually going after military facilities and not like headquarters buildings and things like that, government facilities, and not just high rises full of civilians. So we are going to see that play in both directions. Nonetheless, Katz says that the Ayatollah is getting ready to pay a heavy price. It's not clear if this is going to be in addition to the ongoing operation that has not stopped to dismantle the Iranian nuclear program that's ongoing right now, but it's entirely possible we see more of a targeted operation going after senior Iranian officials, maybe even the Ayatollah himself, which sounds crazy, but when you put it in the broader context here, that may actually be in the cards. I mean, we just had Netanyahu a few minutes ago put out a statement to the Iranian people where he said, quote, we are in the midst of one of the greatest military operations in history, Operation Rising Lion. The Islamic regime, which has oppressed you for almost 50 years, threatens to destroy our country, the state of Israel. The objective of Israel's operation is to thwart the Islamic regime's nuclear and ballistic missile threat to us. As we achieve our objective, we are also clearing the path for you to achieve your freedom. In the past 24 hours, we have taken out top military commanders, senior nuclear scientists, the Islamic regime's most significant enrichment facility, and a large portion of its ballistic missile arsenal. More is on the way. The regime does not know what hit them or what will hit them. It has never been weaker. This is your opportunity to stand up and let your voices be heard. Now, I've not seen any indications of any sort of local uprising at this point, but it is worth mentioning now that there is a significant population inside of Iran that is not supportive of the current regime. This is one of those scenarios where you do not have the entire country in lockstep with the ambitions and the policies of the leadership right now. We don't know if there's enough people to actually affect change. That, of course, takes significant bravery and sacrifice to do anything like the toppling of an autocratic regime like we see, or a theocratic regime like we see in Iran. But make no mistake, there are going to be videos coming out showing people, and we've already got some, heck, I'll play one right here, of people chanting death to Israel, death to the United States, celebrating in the streets these strikes against Israel and hoping for strikes against the United States. But that is a divided population, and there are a lot of Iranians that that have friends in Israel, have friends in the United States, and want to just get along and do not like what their government is doing. Just keep that back of mind. Now, before shifting into some of these battle damage assessments that we're seeing from the Israeli strikes, I do want to mention that we have a podcast. I just recorded the weekly episode earlier today called Unclassified with a buddy of mine, Ben Wheeler. We tend to talk about mostly international relations and national security. So today, this whole issue took up the good half of the show, but then we veered into some more, it's domestic, but still national security. So talking a lot about the ongoing protests in the United States and kind of our thoughts on the activation of the National Guard and the Marines to try to quell those protests. So if interested, podcast is moving along. We got like 150 reviews on Spotify, which is awesome. It's actually growing like really, really fast, but it's on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. I'll put all the links below in the description if interested. Now, turning over to some of the effects of the Israeli strikes overnight. Again, these are continuing, so this is not something that we should look at in terms of waves, of the first wave and the second wave, and maybe another one is beginning. This is going to be borderline nonstop for the foreseeable future. So first off, starting with the Iranian nuclear sites, the core of why these strikes were carried out, as mentioned by Netanyahu and other senior Israeli officials over the past 24 hours. In a statement to the media, the IDF spokesperson said, quote, "We can now reveal that we attacked the nuclear facility in Isfahan, the largest uranium enrichment facility. And earlier today, Israel attacked in Fordo and paralyzed the facility in Natanz." So multiple nuclear facilities targeted by Israel during the course of this operation. This was unconfirmed yesterday, although there were a lot of pictures and videos coming out showing smoke rising from some of those facilities. But in the last 12 hours, we now have satellite imagery to confirm the damage to some of these locations. There was actually a statement put out by the IAEA chairman, International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, who said, quote, "Israel destroyed the above-ground part of the Natanz nuclear facility. There are no indications of damage to the underground enrichment facilities of the site, but the power outage may have affected the centrifuges. There is radioactive and chemical contamination at the site." And then there was an interesting assessment here that I wanted to share from the Institute for Science, where they pulled some satellite imagery to kind of run through what they assessed to be the actual damage at the Natanz facility. So they say satellite imagery as well as ground imagery support that multiple above-ground facilities were destroyed, apparently with the goal to render the site unusable by taking out the electrical supply in a first strike. The imagery shows extensive damage to the electrical power supply for the complex, including the main outdoor transformer substation, a concealed transformer substation, and 2 backup gas turbine generators. With smoke still rising when the image was taken around 11 a.m. local time. They say the above-ground pilot fuel enrichment plant, PFEP, was also destroyed. But there's some interesting aspects here because a big conversation around striking these Iranian enrichment facilities was they're underground. How is Israel going to get to those? They might need the United States and some U.S. specially designed bunker buster type bombs to actually get to these. And even then, maybe that won't be enough. Through this analysis, they say the below-ground enrichment facility appears to have not been targeted through earth penetrators in this attack. There is also no visible damage to the buildings holding the below-ground entrances, although damage is visible near the personnel entrances, where a small building, possibly a parking structure, was destroyed between those personal entrance buildings. However, drone strikes or less visible means of attack cannot be excluded. Moreover, the loss of electricity to the underground facility can lead to extensive damage to the centrifuges if emergency power is lost or runs down and the centrifuges spin down. At least the enrichment plant is rendered inoperable for a time being by the thorough disconnect from power supply and the lack of support functions dependent on such power, such as HVAC. So a couple things to take away here. First off, we would see through satellite imagery these ground penetrating or bunker buster type munitions. Does not appear that any of those were used. Israel does have that capacity, just not at the size that we have in the United States. So Israel has used those. They used quite a few to kill Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, a while back. So that capability exists. Wouldn't be shocked to see Israel using that. But something to think about when looking at the destruction of these nuclear facilities is it's not as though Israel has the ability or anyone has the ability to drop one bomb that is going to go all the way through this mountain and these reinforced hallways and overhead cover and make it all the way into the middle. And then there's going to be one big explosion. The entire thing is gone. That's not going to happen. it's going to take at the very least multiple bunker buster bombs, and even then probably across multiple locations of the same nuclear facility. So what it looks like right now is Israel's first series of attacks against this nuclear facility, this specific one, was designed to render it inoperable. Maybe make it so people can't get underground, shut off the power supply. It's not just dropping bombs on mountaintops, but making it to where it cannot function going forward. And now the process begins with the degradation of the Iranian air defense network and their capability to defend themselves from these attacks. Israel can probably begin longer and more significant bombing runs of some of these facilities to render them completely useless for longer periods of time. Again, strike one, shut it down for a day, a week, maybe a couple weeks, and then over the course of the next couple days, make it to where this thing is untenable and it's not even worth trying to dig it out from underneath the rubble. In that assessment here, they say satellite imagery also does not show any damage to the new facility under construction under Mount Ghazala, just south of the Natanz enrichment plant. This facility will hold an advanced centrifuge assembly facility and may hold the new centrifuge enrichment plant that Iran has said is intended to start soon. However, this mountain complex shares a power supply with the Natanz complex, so right now the mountain complex is dark, apart from perhaps small mobile generators on site. Again, mountain complex for some of these facilities, and it's not just a matter of their nuclear facilities. We've seen videos from Iran highlighting some of their underground missile, drone, and weapon storage facilities, which is something to keep in mind. As much as Israel appears to have targeted a lot of their above-ground weapon systems and taken out a lot of Iran's ability to immediately respond with ballistic missiles, there are quite a few that Iran still has underground. An unknown amount, I should say, because, it's a military capability and it's underground, but nonetheless, they're there. It does look like that is an aspect of what Israel went after. However, in some additional graphics that Israel released that I'll show here, they say in the last few hours, Israeli Air Force fighter jets completed a series of strikes against the Iranian regime's surface-to-surface missile array. So those are missiles designed to be fired, in this case, from Israel or from Iran into Israel. They say as a part of these strikes, dozens of launchers, surface-to-surface missile storage facilities, and additional military sites were destroyed. At one of the sites in western Iran, a unique launch mechanism was embedded within shipping containers. Seen that before, right? I mean, just the other day, the United States was, we had a celebration at Fort Bragg. President Trump was there, and in the background of one of the pictures, you can see the HIMARS launcher coming out the back of a shipping container. Seems to be all the rage these days. Everybody's doing it. They say throughout the war, the Iranian regime has fired hundreds of surface-to-surface missiles towards the territory of the state of Israel. The destruction of missiles constitutes a vital mission in the effort to defend the citizens of the state of Israel. The Iranian regime's missile arsenal includes missiles with ranges of thousands of kilometers. Leaving those missiles in the hands of the Iranian regime poses a danger to the region and to the entire world. And to that end, Israel released this graphic here showing the ranges of the Iranian missiles, or the estimated ranges of these missiles. And this is notable because it goes to the idea here of trying to build like an international coalition. Again, there is no expectation that you're going to see allied jets flying over Iranian territory anytime soon, joining Israel in these strikes, but they're looking for, in a sense, international approval, or not, maybe at the very least, not condemnation of carrying out these attacks. And this is one way of doing it. Israel showing, hey, these missiles are not only a threat to us. Look at everybody they could hit if they wanted to. It's Turkey, Ukraine, China, India, and, of course, the entire Middle East. So that is clearly going to be a part of Israel's messaging going forward, saying this is not just about us. This is a favor to anybody who could be on the wrong side of the Iranian regime now or going forward, should they have continued their nuclear program. Additionally, Israel said they were able to strike a couple different Iranian air bases, which maybe, hate to say it, end of an era, might have eliminated the last remaining Iranian F-4s. Old fighter jets that Iran was operating before the Iranian Revolution in 1979. They're like museum pieces everywhere, I think everywhere except in Iran. It's a little bit of a meme looking at these things because, again, we've got Israeli F-35s flying overhead. F-4s don't really stand much of a chance at all, but nonetheless, there are some early indications that those might be no more. So they say earlier today, the IDF struck the military bases belonging to the Iranian Air Force Hamadan and Tabriz throughout western Iran. The Tabriz base was dismantled as a result of the strike. Additionally, the IDF struck and dismantled dozens of targets belonging to the Iranian regime's aerial defense array, UAVs, and surface-to-surface missile launchers. Now, a couple key notes there. We will, probably in the next 24 hours, be able to see satellite imagery of those Iranian airfields, and we can see, when they say the base was dismantled, what does that actually look like? Israel does have the capability to render an entire Iranian airbase inoperable in a relatively short period of time. Did they actually do that? Wait and see on that, but we should have imagery shortly to confirm or deny. We're not going to get that as much with the missiles, again, because a lot of them are underground. And then as we saw in some of the footage that Israel released, a lot of those missile launch sites are actually mobile locations. They're built like that to make it harder to destroy in a strike like this. But in turn, you can't look at like in an airbase, you can see all the damage in one confined area. When Israel's striking individual missile sites all across the country that move, it's hard to say like, oh, clearly that was a missile, now it was hit, and now it's gone. But nonetheless, should have some satellite imagery to confirm the airbase strikes and probably more damage at some of these nuclear facilities as well. But of course, all of this is still very much ongoing. So we'll do our absolute best to keep you in the know as more information comes out. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.